From the tragic story behind Kagaya's explosive death to Rengoku being turned into a donut, here are 13 of the saddest deaths in Demon Slayer explained. Let's begin with a demon who suffered one of the cruelest deaths in the series. Susamaru was a young girl who enjoyed playing with temaris before she was transformed into a demon. At some point, she encountered Muzan, who turned her into a demon and deceived her into believing she was one of the 12 Kizuki, the most powerful demons in history who worshipped him. This made Susamaru intensely loyal to Muzan, following his every command. Eventually, Muzan sent both her and a fellow demon named Yahaba on a mission to hunt Tanjiro. While battling Tanjiro, she encountered Lady Tamayo, who called Muzan a coward. Enraged, Susamaru fiercely defended her master's honor, but accidentally uttered his last name out loud, triggering the curse of Kibutsuji, which ultimately led to her death. As her body slowly vanished, she pleaded with Tanjiro to return her temari bone, making her death even more tragic. Dang, that was a painful death. But an even more painful death would be Sabito's. Sabito was an orphan who trained under the former water hashira, Sakonoji Urukodaki. This was where he met Giyu, and after months of training together, they eventually became friends and were both determined to become demon slayers. However, things took a dark turn once they reached the final selection exam. On Mount Fujikasane, Sabito fought bravely, saving Giyu and many future demon slayers and defeating several demons. But when he faced the powerful hand demon, his sword shattered against the demon's thick neck, leading to his tragic death. Sabito was the only one who didn't survive that year's final selection. Giyu, feeling unworthy of being a hashira, now wears a hawari made from Sabito's yukata to honor his friend's sacrifice. Man, that was such an honorable death. Speaking of honorable, we have to talk about this woman who died protecting her son. Kotoha Hashibara was around 18 when she gave birth to Inosuke and was trapped in an abusive relationship with his father, as well as mistreated by her mother-in-law. One day, after biting her husband's hand during an outburst, she fled barefoot through the snow with Inosuke in her arms. With nowhere to go, she found refuge in the Paradise Faith cult, led by the Upper Moon II, Doma. Unlike his other cult members, Doma actually enjoyed Kotoha's company and had no intentions of killing her. She and Inosuke lived peacefully until she discovered that Doma was secretly eating the worshippers. Terrified, she fled with Inosuke, but was trapped by a cliff. In her final moments, Kotoha tearfully apologized for not being able to protect her son and tossed him into the river, sacrificing herself to save his life. She was ultimately killed and eaten by Doma, who claimed to have devoured her to the bone, which is just savage. But just imagine if Inosuke's mom had never run away. Maybe Doma would have spared her and turned Inosuke into a demon. That would have been one heck of a story. Next up, we have Gyutaro and Daki's heartbreaking deaths. Both siblings were born into extreme poverty and faced a brutal life after their mother's death. Shortly after Daki's birth, she was named Ume, a name derived from the disease that took their mother's life, syphilis. Ume became an oiran at a young age, while Gyutaro acted as her bodyguard. Their tragic lives took a darker turn when Ume stabbed a samurai, leading both of them to be brutally attacked. Ume was burned alive, and Gyutaro was slashed to near death. Just as Gyutaro was on the brink of dying, Doma appeared and offered them a chance to become demons. In the Entertainment District arc, Gyutaro and Daki were finally defeated by Tanjiro and his team. As their severed heads fell to the ground, the siblings quarreled bitterly. However, Gyutaro eventually carried Daki on his back as they descended into hell, showing that despite their twisted lives, their sibling bond remained unbroken. Now, if this next character hadn't died, the Demon Slayers would have stood no chance against Muzan. Before becoming a demon, Tamayo was a young woman suffering from a terrible illness at 19. In her search for a cure, she met Muzan, who tricked her into becoming a demon. He swiftly transformed her and abandoned her, causing her to kill her husband and children in a fit of rage. Devastated, Tamayo spent centuries creating a serum to defeat Muzan. When the serum was finally ready, she drank it and launched a desperate attack on Muzan. Muzan, however, killed her effortlessly, crushing her skull in the process, which was just brutal. But that was not all, because a heartbreaking detail about her death was revealed in chapter 204, where Tamayo is seen hiding in the background and going to hell while the others head towards heaven, which is just sad. But an even more tragic death happened way before Tanjiro was even born. Yorichi was the first user of the Demon Slayer mark and the originator of every breathing style. Despite being the strongest Demon Slayer in history, Yorichi's past was really tragic. He lost his wife Uta and his unborn child to a demon, a tragedy that haunted him forever. After failing to kill Muzan, Yorichi retired from demon slaying. After 50 years later, he encountered his twin brother Kokushibo, who had become a demon. The two fought fiercely, and Yorichi was on the verge of victory, but age caught up to him, and he died mid-battle. Enraged, Kokushibo sliced Yorichi in half, only to discover the flute he had given Yorichi when they were children. This sight made Kokushibo cry from 3 of his eyes, revealing that despite his hatred, a part of him still loved his brother. But let's shift from tragic death to a more explosive one. Kagaya's hatred for Muzan ran so deep that he blew up himself himself, his wife, and his 2 kids just to give the Hashiras a fighting chance against Muzan, which was insane, but there's a heartbreaking reason behind it. According to the Demon Slayer databook, Kaguya became the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps at just 4 years old after his father committed suicide, unable to bear the burden of losing Slayers to demons. But the tragedy didn't stop there, because Kaguya had 2 younger brothers, Senri and Akito. After their father's death, Senri became mentally unstable, cursing everyone around him, including their mother and Kaguya. In a devastating turn, Senri took Akito and set their mansion on fire, forcing Akito into a double suicide. Their mother, in a desperate attempt to save them, was severely burned and later died from her injuries. Now that is really sad, but Kaguya may have gone a bit too far. I mean, he literally killed his innocent wife and kids. And while that death was tragic, this next one is truly heartbreaking, because this guy died with a smile on his face. Rengoku, the Flame Hashira, was sent on a mission with Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke to protect the passengers on the Mugen train. But when Akaza, the Upper Moon 3 demon, appeared, everything took a dark turn. Rengoku and Akaza engaged in an intense all-out battle. Despite fighting with everything he had, Rengoku was left mortally wounded. In his final moments, he encouraged Tanjiro and his friends to keep moving forward and to set their hearts ablaze. With those powerful words and a smile on his face, Rengoku passed away. What a legend! But Rengoku wasn't the only legend. Gyome was too, and his death was truly sad. During the Infinity Castle arc, Gyome played a crucial role in taking down both Muzan and Kokushibo. However, this came at a heavy cost. He lost a leg and suffered severe blood loss. In his final moments, Gyome met the spirits of the children he couldn't protect, who comforted him as they guided him to the afterlife. Man, that was sad. If you're finding these stories impactful as we are and want to be entered in our video shoutout giveaway, simply subscribe, then comment, I subbed, and you'll be entered. This shoutout giveaway goes to @RensNinoAyubo. Thanks for being a part of the family. Let's get back to another sad death. Shinobu's death was just brutal. Shinobu once had a sister named Kanaya, the former flower Hashira. At some point, Kanaya encountered Doma, who tragically killed her. This loss drove Shinobu to seek revenge against Doma. She eventually encountered him during the Infinity Castle arc, but unfortunately lost and got absorbed. Knowing she couldn't defeat him in a direct fight, Shinobu devised a plan. She allowed Doma to absorb her, but not before filling her body with 37 kilograms of wisteria poison, which was 70 times more lethal than a normal poison for a demon. This act of self-sacrifice ultimately gave both Kanao and Inosuke the chance to finish off Doma. While Shinobu's death was heartbreaking, Obanai and Mitsuri's deaths had me crying waterfalls. You see, the two were deeply in love, but they never had the chance to fully express their feelings, largely due to their tragic pasts. Obanai was born into a clan of criminals and endured a childhood filled with cruelty. This left him emotionally scarred and wary of women. Mitsuri, on the other hand, struggled with insecurities, often feeling out of place due to her unusual strength and appetite. Despite these obstacles, their bond grew stronger as they fought side by side against Muzan. In their final moments, after suffering fatal wounds during the battle, they finally confessed their love for each other. As they lay dying, Obanai held Mitsuri so tight that they had to be buried together. Now that is true love. But Mitsuri and Obanai weren't the only couple with a tragic fate. Akaza's story is just as heartbreaking. Before becoming a demon, Akaza was a human named Hakuji. He grew up in poverty and had a tough childhood, often fighting to protect his sick father. Life took a turn when he met Keizo, a kind martial artist who took him in and trained him. During this time, Hakuji also fell in love with Keizo's daughter, Koyuki, who had been frail and sickly most of her life. Hakuji's love for Koyuki was deep and true. He promised to marry her once she fully recovered, and he worked tirelessly to ensure she would have a bright future. But tragedy struck when a rival dojo poisoned both Keizo and Koyuki, leaving Hakuji shattered. In a fit of rage and despair, he slaughtered all 67 members of the rival dojo with his bare hands, a brutal act that led Muzan to turn him into the demon Akaza. But even as a demon, the memory of Koyuki never left him. His compass needle technique was inspired by the hairpin she wore. As he fought Gyu and Tanjiro, memories of his human life began to resurface, overwhelming him with guilt and sorrow. In a final act of redemption, he chose to end his own life, disintegrating himself rather than continuing living as a demon. While Akaza's death was pretty sad, Muichiro's and Genya's were even more heartbreaking. Both were brutally killed in their battle against Kokushibo, but Genya had it way worse. He was sliced apart, and as he lay dying, Sanemi cried and pleaded with him to live, telling him how much he loved him. But tragically, Genya's ears had already turned to ash, and he wouldn't hear his brother's words. What made both Muichiro's and Genya's deaths even more tragic was that their bodies were never found after the war, meaning they were never buried. Dang, those were some painful deaths. Did you cry? If not, I bet you will when you check out this video where we talk about all the saddest facts you missed about the Hashiras. Go on, click it!